Hello, everybody. My name is Lita Abella. Welcome to my new show, What's Your Story in the New Normal? I'm an entrepreneur, health and wellness consultant, public speaker, licensed private investigator, and former LAPD lieutenant. And in between all that, I went to law school and obtained my JD. I tell stories that inform, inspire, and influence others. I'm very excited about my guest today. I have a very special guest from my city, the city of Azusa. I have Chief Mike Bertelsen as my guest today. So welcome, Chief. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so been with the city for 26 years. I actually grew up in the San Gabriel Valley locally, so was familiar with Azusa growing up, and got hired as a jailer. And I did about a year as a jailer and knew I wanted to be a police officer, so got hired on by the agency. They kind of tried me out for a little bit to make sure I was a good employee, and things have worked out. But went to the academy and got out, and I've had a very successful career, and I've been blessed to be here. I've worked a variety of assignments from patrol to being a field training officer, explorer advisor, so I was mentor to kids in the neighborhood, through working property crimes as a detective, gang crimes as a detective. I've been, obviously a patrol lieutenant and operations and administrative division captain, and all of the assorted collateral duties that go with those. With a small agency, we wear many hats. So it actually gives us a good opportunity to get a variety of experience. So an example would be, I mentioned two different detectives positions. And so we do typically a 4-year assignment as a detective, and then we rotate back to patrol. That gives other people an opportunity to work it, because, if you had somebody go in and work as a gang detective for 25 years, nobody else in the agency would get an opportunity. So the good thing about that is, the previous detective has that experience, they take it back to patrol. And I would say about a half of our patrol division has previous detective experience. So when that patrol officer shows up to your door, they've actually got detective investigative experience that is a little bit better than just, an average patrol person. So it's been a great career. I've actually been chief now 7 months. I was sworn in September of last year, and the first 5 months were great. The last 9 weeks have been really kind of crazy, as everybody's experienced.
Right.
Obviously there's no playbook for how to respond to a pandemic. The last chief that went through something like this was in 1918, and
Wow.
Obviously I can't talk to that guy. So the good thing is, everything, all the steps that we've done, we've documented, and we're very thorough in making sure that should something like this occur again, we've got things in place. And if they're talking about a resurgence in the fall or in the winter, well, I can just bring out my directives that I've been issuing over the last 9 weeks, and just go back to what we're doing. So it's pretty good. I feel very comfortable about the agency and where we're at. On a personal level, I'm married. I've got a couple of kids. I have a senior in high school, so I've been experiencing him losing his prom and senior luau and grad night and all of the other things that folks are missing out on. And so I feel for the students that are out there and the seniors that are out there, both high school and college, obviously, and the families as well. So we'll see what the fall holds. He's been accepted to a school, and it's a good school, and he's supposed to be set up in dorms, but we'll see what happens. So.
Wow. I totally understand what you're saying as far as your son with grad night, because my son just graduated from law school, just took the February bar exam. So he was supposed to have his commencement actually next Friday. That's been canceled. So it's just been a whirlwind for everybody. But yes, especially for the senior classes that have graduated from high school, college, it's something that you always want to remember your entire life. But no one's ever going to forget this year. It will be the special.
Yeah, well, that's just it. Yeah, they're hitting the milestone. It's just a different milestone that you and I have experienced, right? And in 30 years, they're going to have a great story to tell.
Right.
So,
How,
and good support at home and through the schools and everything. I think the kids are going to come out, and I trust that the class of 2020 will be very innovative and work hard and recover very well.
so just to get to know a little bit about the city of Azusa, how many officers do you command over, and what's the square mileage of the city of Azusa?
So we have 61 sworn positions. They're not all full right now. I do have some vacancies, and we are actively working to try to hire folks. And overall, the city, the police department has about 85 positions, so sworn plus professional staff. And then the city is just under 10 square miles. Population is about 50,000. And we use a service area policing model. So I have a lieutenant that's in charge of 3 different geographical areas of the city. And so they're kind of the go-to for the community members. Like if there's a community meeting they need to go to, or if there are problems that need to be addressed in that service area, they can contact those lieutenants directly. And those lieutenants are my problem solvers. And they're the ones that will come and tell me, hey, I had this issue, and this is my recommendation, or this is what we've implemented, and kind of report those actions up.
So now that we're in this COVID-19 pandemic, how are the residents of Azusa handling it, the stay-at-home order? Are they complying? What's going on as far as overall with the city?
Yeah, overall, we've Azusa is a great community, right? I've been here 26 years, and I've seen good days and bad days in the community, and obviously now is very trying and stressful times. But the community has been great, and for the most part, people are following the health orders and staying home and being very respectful. And if you go to Target, if you go to Costco or any of the stores in the community, whatever it might be, everybody's social distancing. They're being very polite, and I think just overall, not only in Azusa but just overall, I think people recognize, hey, we're in it together. But specific to Azusa, people have abided by the health orders. There's been service changes. There's parks are closed and playgrounds are closed, and we've had very few calls of people violating those orders.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
Now, I see sometimes on the Facebook, social media, about people going up to Highway 39, which I've never been up there, but I hear it's supposedly very beautiful and people go up there to hike.
Yeah, I grew up going into the canyon, yeah, as a
Oh,
kid.
really?
Yeah.
So I hear sometimes that there's like motorcyclists or a bunch of people just going up there and sometimes causing havoc. Have those problems continued during this pandemic?
Yeah, so it's not unusual for car clubs and motorcycle clubs and or just families to go up into the canyon to enjoy the outdoors. Right, we've got the San Gabriel River comes out of the canyon, and it's very scenic, and there are some trailheads up there for people to hike and exercise and whatnot. So obviously, with the health orders that came out, people are only supposed to be traveling to and from essential businesses, and there are very few essential businesses in the canyon, right? If any. So we did have some complaints and people calling saying, hey, there's large groups of people going up there, and I hear cars racing up and down the street as they're heading up into the canyon. And I should note that the jurisdiction of the canyon, Azusa PD jurisdictional line is really about a half mile up into the canyon, and then it transitions to LA County Sheriff's jurisdiction and CHP as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you haven't been up there, but there's the very first curve you go over a bridge, the very first curve getting up into the canyon. Just beyond that curve is the end of the city limit. So but beyond that curve is there's no residences, there's no homes, there's nothing up there. So the complaints that have been received are really from the folks in the city of Azusa. So, we do put traffic enforcement details together in non-pandemic times, and with the concerns of the folks that have let us know, hey, this is a problem, including, we've seen the videos of people in the turnouts, and they're doing donuts, and hundreds of cars parked, and people not exercising, social distancing, and doing the things that they're supposed to. Granted, those are up in the forest, and they're, it's not part of our jurisdiction, but we do work closely with San Dimas Sheriff's Department, polices that area, and then the CHP officers out of Baldwin Park Station as well. So I'm in regular communication with the excuse me a second, turn the radio off. In regular communication with the captains from those two stations to collaborate on how we're going to deal with some of the problems. So the CHP has staffed additional officers from their B team up into the canyon. And then the Sheriff's Department has deployed, especially on weekends, they deploy extra reserve deputies up there. And then we have been doing the extra patrols. Last weekend we have grant funding from the Office of Traffic Safety. And so we did a grant funded enforcement operation, and we made 74 traffic stops and issued 29 citations to violators. Yeah. Impounded a vehicle or two. And so, we take it very serious, and it's not just about, the noise complaints and that, which is important as a quality of life issue, but it's also safety. I mean, there are fatal collisions that take place up in the canyon, and we've had them in our jurisdiction, and speeding going up and down, and plus the health orders. You should be staying home and not only protecting yourself, but protecting your neighbors and your loved ones.
Wow, that's a lot of enforcement up there. I'm glad to hear that is taking place up there, and I'm sure the residents that live on that route up there are very happy about this. And you mentioned about traffic citations and traffic stops and so forth. As far as overall in the city of Azusa, have you had to make any arrests or give any warnings to violators for disobeying the stay-at-home order in Azusa?
So really the orders came out, and it's a misdemeanor to violate the order, right? But collaborating with our neighboring law enforcement agencies, I'm on at least a weekly Zoom meeting with LA County Chiefs Association and the San Gabriel Valley Chiefs Association as well, and talking with the other law enforcement agencies and trying to determine what the best way to deal with it. Working with the courts, trying to figure out, okay, are you going to enforce violation of these orders? The plan that came up and what we implemented was really trying to educate people. If we get calls or complaints, go out, make contact, explain to them, the reason for the order, what the orders are, and issue warnings as needed. And then, as a last resort, do the warning, try to get voluntary compliance. As a last resort, we could take enforcement action. For the most part, I would say, yeah, I'm sure we've issued warnings to folks and people that are not abiding by the orders. I don't know the numbers per se, but I'm sure that they've done that, educated people. And I know that they have gained voluntary compliance, not only with just people like in the park or that kind of thing, but with some businesses that were opening here and there. I know for sure that they've gained voluntary compliance there. So we have had to take some enforcement action, maybe a handful of times, but it was not specific to the order per se. There was another violation, there was some other crime that was taking place, but at the same time they were violating the health order. So we're like, okay, well, if you wouldn't have violated this, you wouldn't have been able to do that. So we combined them both, and they got a citation for both. Right. And that's I can probably count on one hand how many times we've had to do that.
Okay. Have any services changed to the public since COVID-19, as far as maybe your operating hours at the police station or anything?
Yeah. So early on in the health crisis, you know, I went through my emails, and my first email to our city council was on March 4th. Okay, so that was when LA County issued their health order, right? But before that, we were already kind of monitoring things and trying to determine what the impact was going to be and how serious the health crisis was going to be. And so we took early action and secured our PPE supply, and you know, we've inventoried everything, and you know, thankfully we were prepared. You know, you never know what's coming, and Azusa PD does a good job of being prepared and trained and ready to go. So you know, we took early action. During those conversations, we were also trying to determine, okay, what changes in service do we want to implement to keep the public safe and to keep our staff safe? Because obviously, if you know, the early numbers were that you may lose 30, 40, or 50% of your workforce. Well, with an agency that has 60 officers, if I lose half of those officers, it would be hard for us to keep the public safety services going. So we implemented some modified schedules. We platooned off some of our detectives. So half of our detectives were off while the other half were working. And the people that were off were actually telecommuting and working from home. Same with our records division. Our dispatchers, we assigned them specific workspaces. So there was no, or we mitigated cross-contamination in those areas. We limited access for some staff going into records or dispatch to limit that cross-contamination. One of the things we did was we closed our lobby to the public. So you can't just walk in the front door, right? So now you have to, there's a phone outside, you pick up the phone or you call on your cell phone, you explain to the dispatcher what you need, and then we allow one person at a time into the lobby so that they can receive the services that they need.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then, you know, as a safety measure, after each interaction, the record staff or the officer would, you know, they wipe down the area where they helped the community member. That way, you know, it reduces the virus impact. We started taking several reports over the phone. So if say there was a theft report with no follow-up information, no suspect information, kind of a whodunit, where, you know, having an officer respond out to the field wasn't really necessary. They could get the information they needed over the phone. We started taking phone reports in some of those areas. So now the good thing of that is we're getting ready to roll out in the next week or two an online reporting system. So those reports, people won't even have to call the station anymore. They just go to our website. They can file the report online, and then it will end up into our database, and we can track the information and issue them a report number online.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
a lot of people don't realize all the steps that have to be taken for public safety. I mean, it's a huge operation to get all that taken care of and done. Yeah,
there's a lot going. Obviously, you know, communicating with our partners, working closely with my command staff and our unions to really try to figure out best practices to hit a moving target. Because, you know, early in this pandemic and even today, you know, things change almost by the hour. You know, you may hear one thing, next thing you know, okay, I'll pivot and do this. And, you know, I'm fortunate to have a good command staff here. I have good partners in the region. You know, we're talking regularly with LA County Fire Department, with our neighboring agencies, and then of course with the chiefs associations on a larger scale. You know, the LA County Department of Health has been good pushing out information to us, and you know, I feel today sitting here, I feel pretty comfortable with our preparedness and response. I think we've done a great job.
That's amazing. I live in the community of Rosedale, which is a beautiful community here in the city of Azusa. And as you know, the Gold Line ends the APU-Citrus Gold Line ends in Rosedale, and we've had a lot of problems with the homeless people, coming. I work in downtown LA, so I have the homeless people over there, and then we see them get on the trains and they end up over here. And during this pandemic, what's been going on? What's the city been doing with this homeless population? I mean, obviously they're human beings, they're people too, we need to take care of them. But how has the city been handling them? Because we've seen an increase with the homeless population in the Gold Line area and coming into our community.
Yeah, so I'll cover a couple of areas. So the city of Azusa has, we call it the HALO program, and it's the Homeless Assistance Liaison Officer Program. And so we have officers that are specially trained to deal with helping to provide outreach and services to people that are experiencing homelessness. And it's a collateral duty for those officers. So meaning they are either a detective full-time or a patrol officer full-time, but when there's a special operation related to doing outreach, they're specially trained and they go out and do it. And then they have also been tasked with training the rest of our staff on how to do outreach and provide services where we can. Part of the HALO program also is partnering with the other city departments. So, we work with our Public Works Department, our Light and Water Department. We work with our, Recreation and Family Services, our library as well. Our library has done a great job. They've got a program called Neighborhood Connections, and they've received grant funding to get social workers assigned at city facilities that are specifically there to help people that are experiencing homelessness. So we do a very good job in the city of Azusa of trying to help people that have they're out there on the streets and need help. So we have continued those with those operations and doing the outreach throughout the pandemic. We have not done any extra proactive regional outreach programs, just because, quite frankly, like I mentioned, the forecast was, you could lose 30, 40, 50% of your staff. And so we wanted to mitigate the exposure where we could, so we don't get people sick and they don't get us sick. But anytime we've come across anybody experiencing homelessness on a radio call, or if we see them in the community, if somebody calls and says, hey, there's somebody over here, we definitely respond to that. We do outreach. We try to provide them services. We refer them to our neighborhood connections, who they're the ones that can get them into the coordinated entry system, and to really get them the social workers they need and whatnot. So specific to Rosedale, it is a concern, obviously, with the Gold Line ending where it's at. People that come and ride the train, and they're called transitory homeless, and oftentimes they may get on the train in a different city and then they ride the train. If you're experiencing homelessness and it's hot out, the train is air conditioned. If it's cold out, it's heated. Right. And so one of the misconceptions is, well, why don't they just, why are these people on the train? They should be kicked off. They should, whatever it is. Well, Azusa doesn't have jurisdiction on the train. We don't police the train or the platforms. That's the LA County Sheriff's Department. That's their jurisdiction. And most of the people that are on the train that are experiencing homelessness, they have valid TAP cards and they're allowed to ride on the train. They receive those TAP cards, either, well-meaning people give them to them, and or they have TAP cards because when they go for resources, say they're homeless in Azusa, but they have to go to Pasadena to meet with a counselor or a social worker or something like that. Well, they have to have fare to ride. So, they receive a TAP card, perhaps in Pasadena, they come out here, they ride all day, with the one that they have. So it's not as easy as, hey, you're homeless, get off the train, because, we don't treat them differently. I wouldn't walk up to you and say, hey, get off the train, right? So somebody that's experiencing homelessness, if they have a TAP card, they can be there, but again, we don't take that enforcement action. We do outreach on the train. Some of the HALO operations we've done have been from Pasadena, all of the cities along the way to the APU-Citrus station. We include Glendora, Urbandale, sheriffs, Monrovia. I think Sierra Madre has been with us, and it's really to try to do outreach and help people so that they don't ride to the end of the line and decide, oh, we're just going to get off here and see what this neighborhood's about. So as for the numbers of calls for service in Rosedale or the community overall regarding homeless, I don't know that there's been an increase in the last 8 weeks or 9 weeks. I think it's just kind of been constant pre-pandemic into the pandemic. And quite frankly, I think, and this is just anecdotal driving around the community, I don't know that I'm seeing as many homeless out in the streets and walking around and that kind of thing. And hopefully it's because we're doing outreach and they recognize, hey, I need to do what I can to be placed, or they've been able to take advantage of some of the resources that are now available.
Has the crime increased, decreased, or remained the same since the pandemic?
It depends, right? So throughout the community, we've seen some decreases and some increases. So there's been a slight increase in commercial burglaries, like window smash burglaries overnight type of a thing. And some of those have been to businesses that were closed because they were non-essential. So eventually somebody sees the door is broken or the window is broken to a business, they call us, but we oftentimes don't even have a time frame because there's been nobody at that business for a week, that kind of thing. So we've seen an uptick in that. We've seen an uptick in stolen vehicles as well. And these are not necessarily specific to Azusa. This is regionally. And I know from talking to the other chiefs and everybody's, trying to figure out, okay, well, why are so many cars getting stolen now, and what's going on with that. So, and then we've seen a decrease in some of the violent crimes, in the community as well. Last year we had a situation where there was some gang crime and violent crime taking place, and that has, knock on wood, really kind of diminished. So yeah, it's and then specific to Rosedale, if you're interested in that, I did run the numbers in Rosedale, just general calls for service, and there's been a decrease since February.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I'll give you the numbers. February there was 114 calls, March 111, and then April we had 93. And that's not specific theft calls. That's not, stolen vehicle calls. That's everything combined. And that doesn't include the number of extra patrols that our officers log up in the area. Because we know, obviously, there are situations and problems with homeless populations sometimes getting up in there. And so, our officers routinely try to extra patrol that community as well as the rest of the communities in the city.
Okay.
It's
So,
part of that service area policing I've discussed earlier.
right.
Lieutenants say, hey, this is an identified problem. Please extra patrol this area.
So for the last question, what would your message to the city, to the residents and business people, business owners of the city of Azusa be during this pandemic right now?
Thank you for the support, really. I mean, it's been as challenging as it's been for them. It's been very challenging for our officers and our city staff as well. We all have families and we're all concerned for them and trying to keep them as healthy as we can. But we are dedicated and committed to the community and sworn to serve it. And I call it my community, right? Because I oftentimes spend more time here than I do at my own home, especially in the last 8 weeks. But know that the men and women of Azusa PD they're well prepared, they're well trained. We have all of the PPE we need. We are continuing to respond to emergency calls, and rest assured that we will help support the community as everybody recovers and we kind of move out of the health crisis into our new norm, whatever that's going to be.
Right. Well, I want to thank you so much. I want to thank my guest, Chief Mike Bertelsen, for spending some time with us, and make sure that you stay tuned for the next episode that will be coming out next week. And until then, I hope everyone will stay safe, stay positive, stay healthy, and stay home. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye.